Hello, awesome colorists. Today I'm going to use Prismacolor Premier colored pencils to demonstrate coloring a grayscale face with a darker skin tone. Now I do have another video on coloring a light skin tone on my channel, and be sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more coloring tutorials. I'm still planning one on blending methods over grayscale coloring, so watch for that. This is an illustration I did of a Mayan princess, and I imagined her with brown skin and jet black hair. Today's tutorial is a page from my new book, Fantasy Faces. I prefer working over a darker grayscale myself, but I've included a full set of pictures in lighter grayscale for people with that preference. Now the portrait I'm going to color today is also highlighted in the bonus tutorial section at the back of the book, which has 6 portraits from lightest to darkest skin tones, along with 6 suggested color combinations. So it is a good idea to color the background first before you start the hair and the skin. That's sort of a good general rule. I'm doing this this beginning part in fast motion, just so you can see. Sometimes you can keep the background quite simple by using a light color and glazing over the grays as well as the light parts. So you notice I'm using, this is light, I believe it's yellow chartreuse, and I'm just going over everything, and then that just kind of sets those leaves a bit in the distance, so they're just softly glazed with color. Now I'm going to work on her necklace. I'm putting just a layer of white over all the little pearls, just to lighten them up a little bit. And then I'm going to color the rest of the necklace first with a layer of Burnt Umber, sort of outlining around each little bead, pearl. And then a layer or two of yellow ochre. And this is speeded up a little, so it's really not the essential, but I thought you might get a kick out of seeing combinations for the necklace as well. I decided to go a little brighter and do a layer of goldenrod to give that necklace a really nice bright gold behind the pearls, which are pretty muted. So I'm doing a slight, using beige to kind of soften the edges there and adding a little highlight. And I decided to keep the gold theme and just do a few layers of yellow ochre over this section of, I can't remember exactly what this was. I think it was a feathered, some kind of feathered shawl that she was wearing. So just something simple. So here are the colors for hair. Now, black hair doesn't always have black, jet black, sort of bluish highlights, but I thought it would be fun to do a very, very jet black hair. And this is Periwinkle, which I'm blending into that, the first layer of 10% gray on the highlights that are the lightest. And now I'm going over the hair, the medium tones of the hair with Periwinkle, just to give it, have a little fun with the hair and make it blue-black. And in that theme, and that was something that printed out a spot there. It's annoying. Anyway, so indigo blue to really push that theme of blue-black in the hair. I'm doing this pretty quickly, so even though it's speeded up, I didn't want to be spending too much time on the hair. I would spend a little more time on the hair if it were, if I wanted to do a super finished job here. And now this might surprise you. Even when hair is such a deep jet black, hair always reflects different colors. So I thought it'd be fun to add some little brown streaks into the hair. It makes it look a little more realistic. Again, I should have been a little more careful with this. And also, if you want the hair to look even darker, you could go in with probably not black, but say a 60 or even 90% gray, and you could darken, say, the top of her head, the hair on her head, if you wanted. I'm darkening it a little with the indigo. All right, so here we are finally starting the skin. So on gray portraits, sometimes I actually will start with the shadow areas, but I'm going to do what I normally do mostly for lighter flesh tones, which is to start with the light areas. And this pencil is beige that I'm starting with. So each of these areas, if you notice, so that's one layer, and I'm trying to lay it on pretty evenly. If you stroke with really tight strokes, you'll be able to cover more. And you go in one direction for a layer, and then the second another direction, third direction. My rule of thumb is at least 4 layers of each color. But notice how minimal that looks. So this is Peach Beige, which is a nice neutral skin tone that I will also use later for burnishing the light side of the face. So I feel that one of the important things to think about when you are coloring dark skin tones is to have enough light areas that show light is falling on the person's face, so that there are enough bright areas that will make the features show up nicely. When you see any pictures of models, for instance, who are darker skinned, notice that the pictures are not super dark. There's plenty of light hitting the subject. And now I'm adding peach. And I hope you noticed I was overlapping a little bit into the grays even with the lighter pencils. And with the peach, I will be layering over a little bit over everything, but mostly in that mid-tone area. Anywhere where the gray is slightly darker than the lightest highlight. So I will be layering this with darker colors too, but I wanted to put down a bit of a base of peach, which kind of will serve to unify the colors. And notice I'm spending especially a longer time on the transition from a light area to a grayer area. I will put in more color in that area. And you can start actually layer a little bit of peach in her lips. And now her cheek on this side. think of the cheeks as sort of like a round ball, and you're sort of rendering that roundness and leaving an area, a light area, where her cheek curves. So here's some more peach. Now the cheeks will be warmer than the chin area and the head, the forehead area. But you definitely want peach on most of those, or all of those actually, mid-tone grays. And sort of feather, this is called feathering, when you feather from a transition from a light area to darker area, kind of feather the edges so you go back and forth with really tiny strokes on those. So the next pencil, which is a little brighter and darker than peach, is one of my favorites. It's called Nectar. And this one is not in the, for some reason, is not in the portrait set that Prismacolor puts out. So, but I find it indispensable. So I would recommend that if you want to do a lot of portraits, that you get this pencil. And notice I'm layering more on her lips again. You know, I tend not to like a super bright lip. I'll add pink on top of this, but that way it will be a slightly more muted pink when I get to that point. So adding some layers on the cheek. I notice I'm going back and forth a little. Actually, this is a little crude, but I will be blending this with pencils in a little while. And I'm decided to go over the cheek area too, although you notice this pencil is a little bit light for that cheek area. But again, I will be putting a slightly darker color on top of this, and then it will all blend in. And this was actually a mistake. Now that I'm recording this over my coloring, which I don't like talking while I'm coloring, so it's maybe a little too bright there in the neck, but I will end up toning that down. So because of the way my camera is, I can't move it to show you how I do this. So it's much easier for me to turn the paper so my hand is going in a direction that's comfortable for it. So I will often, instead of turning my hand when I want to do another layer, I will turn the paper. So to give the sideways version of this. And actually sometimes I work upside down. And if you work upside down, you can see areas that you miss, because sometimes you're distracted by the actual portrait. So going back in with a little more peach to brighten up the face. And paying a lot of attention to that transition area. Notice how soft it's starting to look. And in general, if you feel like your portrait is not looking that great, look at your edges and see if you can feather them and soften them. Again, I'm using light pressure here. The trick is to build up your color slowly, and you can put so many layers on if you do it this way. So I'm using a bit of Light Umber, which is it's a light brown, and it's not a bright reddish brown. It's more of a subdued brown. So sometimes in the shadow areas, if you want to keep that shadow subdued and more neutral, and I was a little too fast when I was doing this, but I will I'll fix it. So again, cross hatching. This is why I actually like working with dark grayscale, because if you work with dark pencils over dark grayscale, the gray underneath will still show through, and you won't have to go as perfectly rendered and dark as you would like when you have to build it up from scratch. So even though this is a technically dark skin tone, you don't want to go too dark with your colors. You always want to show that there's light on the subject, and those colors for the light areas, you know, are fairly bright. But I'm deepening the eye sockets here again with that that Light Umber. So I usually wait until I'm pretty far along before I add pink to the cheeks and to the lips. You know, this is good to add, you know, after you've layered quite a lot on these areas. So it's sort of an enhancement. It's like adding blush to, you know, to a face, you know, if you do makeup. So you want the foundation on first, and then you add the pink on top. And do it delicately. Again, feather it in to the light areas. You can add some on the nose. Our noses tend to be the redder part of our faces, along with our cheeks and lips, of course. So now I'm adding some layers of the pink on top of the lips, on top of the color that I've already put there. So it won't be quite as bright as adding straight pink. But I am bearing down a little harder now and getting a nice pink lip. And that left side is sort of more in the shadow, so I didn't put as much on that side. There you have it. And back with Peach again. Now I'm sort of doing a second pass with everything. You know, faces take quite a while to build up. This face probably, you know, took me close to a half hour. I worked on it for just another minute after this demo to smooth things out, because I have to look kind of down past my camera as I'm coloring this, and I can't see quite as well as the way I normally look, where the picture's a little closer to me. So I'm starting to burnish a little bit. I'm pressing down a little harder, and this is giving a warmer look, because this is Peach, to that light area of the face. So this is where, you know, she's a darker skinned person, so using Peach, even though you think that's a light color, it's actually, compared to white, not a light color at all. So see how this is darkening up all the light areas of her face by using Peach a little bit darker. But we are not done yet. We're going to be putting yet another layer of a color on top of this. So now I'm going to burnish with Peach Beige, which is kind of like a neutral flesh tone. It's got a bit of gray in it, and sometimes I will go into the eyes and tone them down a little if they're really quite bright white. I'll tone them down a little with the Peach Beige. So I am pressing hard here. This is, I am burnishing with the pencil, and you notice how this is now smoothing that entire light area. And I'm using a neutral color like Peach Beige, so it's not so strikingly bright. If I burnish completely with peach, and you can do that if you want a really bright skin tone, you could finish with the peach and really press hard and burnish with it. But I feel like the combination of using the peach first and then burnishing the light areas with the Peach Beige gives a more realistic kind of a skin tone and not quite so bright. And this way also, you know, the nice bright warm cheeks stand out a little better. So I'm pressing over everything and smoothing out all the layers of pencil underneath. So for the dark areas, I like to use this color, which is called Clay Rose. And again, it's a neutral area for medium shadow areas, and sometimes even dark areas, depending on a light-skinned person. This would probably be the darkest dark. But again, I'm spending time on that transition area between the shadow and the highlight. But I decided here to go over the entire dark side of her face with this Clay Rose. And I'll go in again a little bit with a darker pencil, but this is a nice, it's a nice contrast to the light side of her face. And this recording actually is a little lighter than the actual colors look. At the end, you'll see a scan of the actual picture. So here I'm layering a little more pink in, and even though I burnished, I didn't burnish completely in this halftone area, so I'm able to add a little bit of pink, more pink to her cheeks. Going in again with the Nectar, that transition. I think I spend probably half my time on the transitions between the gray, different shades of gray. Decided to darken that area a little. Now for her features, I decided to use a dark umber. I guess I could have been brave and used indigo blue, but or I guess I could have used black, but I tend to like a warm brown for features and eyelashes and what have you. So I often will use the dark brown or dark umber. And just a tiny little accent on the bottom, maybe just a couple little. You don't want to overdo it with the eyelashes. You know, just a few here and there gets the point across. Just a tiny little accent on the lower eyelashes. Now this, I feel, after I've looked at this, was probably a mistake to accent with quite this dark a brown, and I'm going to go back over that with a lighter color, which is often what I do if if I accent something, I will go back in and soften that dark accent with a lighter color. So I'm deepening the shadow under her chin. And all this definitely has to be softened. But we will get to that. So Burnt Ochre. This is a good pencil. That's a nice bright color. And notice I'm using it right over the lips, and I'm softening that super dark line with this brighter brown going over her lips a little bit with that too. Same with the nose, just softening, taking down the darkness a little, crease of her eye, be adding a little darker brown. So the under the eyebrow is always shadowed because the light that's coming from above, you know, her brow is actually shadowing under the eye. So I add a little bit of that warm brown to the shadow of her face. Sometimes when you print out your own picture, the paper might not be completely even, and you might get a little bit of a glitch. And sometimes that's just the paper that you're using. I notice on her cheek there was a little area that didn't take the pencil quite the same as the other areas, but you know, you do the best you can. I usually use drawing paper when I print out my own pictures. And actually I have links to the paper I use on my website if you're interested in finding out good papers to use when you print out your own pictures. So this is the fine-tuning, you know, part of the final part of the picture, where you're just kind of going back and forth with different colors and noticing I'm smoothing the edges of the dark area. This is Nectar, so I'm darkening up and adding more color to her nose. So here is my finished Mayan princess. I did spend a couple more minutes close up so I could work closer to my face where I could see her better, and I burnished a little bit more in the shadow areas. I added a tiny bit of brown to her eyes, very simply, and there she is. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you next time, and keep coloring.